Hi there. Today I'm going to give you 5 strong reasons why you should own a Vostok Amphibian wristwatch. This is a Russian watch, and the word amphibian comes from basically something that can operate both on land and water. So this is a 200-meter diving watch, and I'm going to start with the first reason now. And the first reason for getting an amphibian watch is the case design. Why is this important? So you generally have two ways of approaching the case design of a diving watch. So the more traditional and conventional way of doing it is to create a case that is designed to resist the water pressure, such is the case of this very rugged Bull of a Sea King here. So it's a 300-meter diving watch. It has a very robust case that is basically capable of withstand the pressure of the water under 300 meters. So this is the more conventional way of doing diving watches today, and it's based on the fact that all the components of the case are very machined in a very precise way. They fit together very well, so they can leave almost no gap in the case where you have two elements that needs to be screwed in together, for example. So this is how the Rolex Submariner is tackling this issue. This is how the Omega Seamaster is doing it. So it's basically a case that is resisting the water pressure. And the other approach, which is being utilized in the Vostok, is the compressor type of case. Yeah. So what it does is basically utilizes the water pressure in order to achieve its water resistance. And from an engineering standpoint, this is actually a much more practical and smart approach, mainly because by doing this, you don't need to spend that much effort on the case in terms of crafting it in such a careful way with such fine details. So what you can do is basically use the pressure that the water gives you to achieve this water resistance. And the Vostok Amfibia is probably the cheapest example of an amphibian case that you can get. Vostoks aren't the company that invented this type of case. It was invented previously by a Swiss company. Later on, it's been used extensively by Jacques Lecoultre, for example. But for the money, this is probably the most affordable compressor type of case that you can get. So how does it work basically is that you have a special type of crystal. It's an acrylic crystal that is flexible, so under pressure it can actually expand, and it will apply pressure to a specialized gasket which is in contact with this crystal. And from the other side you have not one piece case back but two pieces case back, which also allows for certain pressure to be applied here by the water to again a specialized gasket, which will give you increased water resistance as the watch goes down into the water. So what happens is that the further down this watch goes into the water, the better its water resistance becomes, which is a very smart approach of dealing with this huge problem of basically not letting water into the case. And I think it's a great way to expand your collection with something as affordable as this watch. And the chances are that you don't own a compressor type of watch. Keep in mind that some of the luxury brands now that are offering such type of so-called compressor watches, Sometimes they're just branded as compressor because historically they used to be a compressor watches, but nowadays they just carry on the name, and the actual compressor is a standard. The actual case now is a standard one, not a compressor. So this is probably the biggest reasons why you should consider a Vostok Amfibia wristwatch. And moving on to the second reason is the robustness of this watch. It's a mechanical watch. It's an automatic, and it has features that are very advanced for its time. It's been designed, I think, in the 70s by request of the military in Russia. But what you can see here is a very special feature that not only the movement is very robust, and the average service interval is 10 years, something that companies like Rolex just did. And this thing has had this service interval for ages. Of course, it's not as precise, but if you unscrew the crown, one thing you would notice is that it's actually quite wobbly. And the first perception that you would get is that, okay, this crown is actually, there's something wrong with the crown. Why is it so wobbly? It's broken. What happens actually is that there is a special clutch system inside the crown that basically disconnects the crown from the rest of the movement. So the only way to operate the crown is by pulling the crown up, and in this way you engage the movement. Otherwise, if you don't pull out the crown completely, there is this wobbling in the crown, which basically means that the crown is currently disconnected from the movement. And this is a great security feature, because if you happen to basically break the crown, this ensures that nothing will go wrong with the movement. You'll be able to still use the watch until there is some power in the movement. So features like this are actually quite rare even today, and this is something that you wouldn't see on many other watches. Actually, I'm not sure if you're going to see them somewhere outside of Vostok. So if you go here, you will see that there is a special sign here in cyrillic, which means that this is an anti-shock movement. Yeah, so this is my second reason. It's really a very robust mechanical movement. Keep in mind, not the most accurate one, but it features really great security features that are not really found even on top high-end two watches. So my third reason is the modding potential of this watch. If you're probably a bit familiar with Vostok watches, you will notice that the bezel that I have here is not the original one. What I have here is a replacement bezel, and I also have a replacement bezel insert. It goes both ways. It's a resistance-based bezel, so it's not going to click. You can rotate it both ways, but you can actually regulate the stiffness of the bezel. So this is something that you can do by yourself. It takes a little bit of time and effort. So coming back to the modding potential, there is a whole bunch of resources on the internet, and basically a whole community that is very much engaged with modding those Amfibia watches, which includes pretty much modding everything about the watch, starting from the case. There are people who are brushing their cases, applying some different processing of their cases. Bezel insert change is probably the easiest one. There are people who even find ways to replace their hands, and they basically insert hands from Omega and other watches. Although keep in mind that the opening for the hands here on the Vostok are quite unconventional, so you might find it difficult to find replacement hands, or if you find replacement hands, they might have to be reworked a little bit so that they can fit. Also, another thing is the bezel. You can take the bezel from pretty much any other Vostok and place it here. What else? Also, people are also replacing their case backs with the transparent ones. Although this would increase the thickness of the watch, and you would lose this special feature of the compressor case this way. And I don't think the Vostok movement is something worthy of display. Although keep in mind that this is an in-house movement, so it's really nothing to be ashamed of. So really, the modding potential here is quite good, and you can certainly spend some time online looking at what other people came up with. There all kind of different designs. It's really a plethora of possibilities and options to modify your Vostok. And this is taking us to the fourth reason why I should get this watch is because actually there are plenty of case shapes. Yeah, so I happen to like this one the best, but there are probably about 10 types of cases. And I'm speaking about the traditional Amfibia watch. There are some newer models which offer further case designs, but they're really cases that look quite retro or vintagey, and there are cases that are looking more modern. This one is probably something like a cushion type of case, I'm not sure, but this one really is the one that I like the most. But really there is probably a case design for everyone. I think mine is the 710, but you have plenty of other cases, so make sure if you're going to get a Vostok, make sure you look at all the case options, and also keep in mind that most of the dials are interchangeable, as we mentioned already, so not a problem to get a different dial if you want. The most famous dial of all Vostok amphibian dials is the so-called Scuba Dude. Sorry, Scuba Dude. It basically depicts a Russian scuba diver on the dial, which is pretty cool. So you should also check this one. And coming to the last, fifth reason is basically the made of the watch. This watch is made in Russia. It used to be made in the Soviet Union before when it was in existence. But this is a watch that is pretty much something different from your normal Swiss, Japanese, or even German watches if you want. And it is a watch that you normally get in between your significant purchases. You could basically buy a Vostok to fill the time gap in between your while you're basically saving for this luxury watch that you're lusting after. It will be a watch that will give you quite a lot of fun to play with, modding or not, and it's something that it cannot be seen very often on anyone's wrist. So I think this is why you should consider having a watch like this in your collection. Okay, these were my 5 reasons why I should get a Vostok Amfibia wristwatch. Let me know in the comment section if you think I've missed if I've missed an important reason for owning such a watch, and also let me know if you already have one or planning to buy one. Thanks, and until next time.